The presidential election of 1876 was hotly contested between Republican Rutherford B. Hayes and Democrat Samuel Tilden. Neither candidate received enough electoral votes to win, and the election moved into the House of Representatives for resolution. The election was resolved when Hayes agreed to remove all remaining Union troops from the South. The Democrats in Congress allowed Hayes to become president in 1877, and the remaining Union troops were soon removed from the southern states. This compromise brought an end to Reconstruction and triggered the dawn of a new era in American history that Mark Twain called the Gilded Age. The term Gilded Age referred to the many social problems, government corruption, poverty, and abuses that were masked by industrialization that produced strong economic growth, greater prosperity, and extreme wealth for a very few. The enormous loss of life and the extreme severity of the devastation of the South in the Civil War and its subjugation thereafter created hatreds and resentments that lingered for generations. But America was finally moving beyond the acrimonious period of Reconstruction toward an uncertain future. Ultimately, this difficult political compromise in 1877 unleashed America to lead an industrial revolution that transformed the world. It is impossible to grasp the situation in America in 1877 without revisiting the terrible toll of the Civil War on American civilization. Please take a few moments to carefully consider these unimaginable casualty figures from the Civil War. The deaths of about 700,000 men would equate to almost 7 million deaths at the USA's current population levels. This massive loss of life and the destruction and subjugation of the South created hatreds that divided America for decades. In 1877, America was divided into three primary areas with very different cultural, political, and economic circumstances. The North. The Civil War had stimulated strong economic growth, industrialization, and infrastructure expansion in support of the war effort. The economy remained primarily agrarian, but the North was far ahead of the rest of the USA in moving towards industrialization and urbanization. The transportation, commerce, banking, and education systems were much more advanced. All of the above translated into higher standards of living and greater prosperity. The South. The Civil War devastated the cities, the wealth, the banks, the culture, the economy, and the industrial and transportation infrastructure of the South. The economy remained almost completely agrarian in 1877 as the federal government refused to facilitate the industrialization of the South. The transportation, commerce, banking, and education systems lagged far behind the North. Westward expansion provided an escape from poor economic conditions for many Southerners, but it also contributed to the slow economic recovery. All of the above resulted in a stagnant economy with a poor standard of living relative to the North. The West. The Homestead Act of 1862 offered 160 acres of land in the Great Plains to settlers for free. The act, poverty, and the Civil War triggered a migration of settlers to the West. The farming, mining, railroad, and cattle industries flourished with migration and benefited from the decline of the South. Buffalo and the Native American culture fell victim to this relentless migration. The completion of the Transcontinental Railway in 1869 opened the Pacific West to settlement and integrated its economy with the rest of the USA. The economy of the West was largely agrarian, but the above factors made it more prosperous than the South. It is useful to consider the life realities of 18-year-olds in America in 1877. Infant mortality. About 1/3 of infants never reached their first birthday. Life expectancy. It averages 40 years, so your life is almost half over on average. Housing. Almost all families live in a cabin in a rural area or a hovel in a city. Lifestyle. You have been working long hours for years on a farm or in a factory. Education. Public education is becoming available, but work must come first. College. Less than 1% of Americans in 1877 ever attend college. Disease. There are almost no effective medicines, so infections are often fatal. Communication. Word of mouth, letters, telegraph. Careers. You are likely to work on a farm or in a factory to subsist until you die. These are the obstacles that they overcame to help create the reality of today.